The Kansas City Chiefs were back on the practice field today for day 14 of training camp, and things are reaching a bit of a lull, as they will before the first preseason game. Things are starting to sort of slow down, get old. Players are falling into the spots and the roles that they will fill, that they are sort of living up to or living down to through training camp until we start to get actual competition. From Charles Goldman on the wide receivers, we get this first. Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy catches the deep pass in install, and the crowd goes wild. It is, of course, understandable that after 2 seasons of having almost zero offense, Chiefs fans would go wild for a deep pass to a guy as electric as Xavier Worthy. One is forced to be a little bit concerned that things might look like, was it 2019 or 2020? When Mahomes just wanted to go deep all the time. So hopefully this offense does not reach that level of aggravating. But when we start to look at some of these other notes, I think that it is promising that it will not. From Charles, we also get this. Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney, ankle, is practicing again today. Only did individual position work yesterday. We'll see if he does more today. The reason I put this in here, if you think about it, the Kansas City Chiefs really need basically one guy out of Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, and Nico Remigio to pan out, to be that dependable 4 yards downfield guy. Now, they'll do it in different ways. Kadarius Toney has elite movement skills. He is going to be able to find himself open 4 yards downfield regardless of the route, as long as he executes. Mecole Hardman has elite speed in straight line and straight line capability. If he is counted on to be that guy, field's only 53 yards wide, so you got to make it work fast. Nico Remigio is just a slippery guy. Nico Remigio finds himself as an extremely high-effort guy. That's how he ends up making plays. If one of those guys finds a way to make it work, the Kansas City Chiefs all of a sudden have Rashee Rice, who was an at the line of scrimmage guy early in the season, became an intermediate route guy as the season went on. They have Travis Kelce, who's going to be a middle of the field guy, who's going to be an intermediate guy. You have Hollywood Brown, who's going to be a deep threat, Xavier Worthy, who's going to be a deep threat. It's hard to cover all of that space as it is. You throw in a guy 4 yards downfield who can get you a completion and or a first down reliably, dependably, this offense becomes absolutely impossible to stop. Noted here from Charles as well, Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is a cheat code in 7-on-7, way too easy for him. How do you become a cheat code at 7-on-7? Well, that's the 10-yard downfield stuff. That's why it's different. So, what's the difference from 7-on-7 to 11-on-11? It's the line. The line makes that 10-yard downfield stuff more difficult because you have to find a way to get the ball over the defensive lineman under the linebackers. So it doesn't come across that way on Madden, right? That's the connection that most of us have to that is seeing it on field, playing Madden, etc. It's a much different thing. I don't know if you remember David Carr from Fresno was the first pick of the Texans. He had a 3/4 delivery release. And it's never going to work in the NFL, they said. It'll never work in the NFL, they said. So What they did in Houston was they brought in 10-foot ladders. And all of the passing drills that he had to do that year, he had to throw over the 10-foot ladders. Well, it absolutely destroyed David Carr. But that is the type of rationale that these coaches have. That your three-quarter delivery is not going to be good enough because 60% of the passing we do is within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and you can't do that with 6'5" defensive ends and defensive tackles in your face with their arms up. Those guys aren't as wide as ladders, right? So it ruined his career because it just sort of put him in shell shock. It's one of the things that ruined his career, but it put him in shell shock immediately. That is what's going on with Rashee Rice being so effective in 7-on-7. It's the exact opposite of that. But what it does tell us is that Rashee Rice is still going to be that intermediate guy. They are not regressing him back to being the line of scrimmage guy. It's possible he will still do a lot of line of scrimmage stuff, but he doesn't have to be at the line of scrimmage. The one note that I have on tight ends, Jared Wiley went up against Drew Tranquill in a one-on-one drill. At the top of that drill, he put Drew Tranquill on rollerblades. It was ridiculous. Now, a lot of hand-to-hand fighting during that drill. Maybe it would get called as offensive pass interference during a game. Maybe it would go down as incidental contact. Here's the thing interesting to note about this rep. Now, it's just one rep. I don't know that Jared Wiley is out there putting Drew Tranquill to shame 6, 7, 8 times per practice. I don't know that. Here's what you need to know, though. The Chiefs, this is a rookie tight end putting a Chiefs linebacker to shame on a rep. The Chiefs have very good linebackers. We know that. The guy he put to shame wasn't one of the UDFA linebackers, Curtis Jacobs. No. It wasn't Nick Bolton, who's a very good middle linebacker, but not a coverage guy. No, this was Drew Tranquill, their coverage specialist, that he made look absolutely silly. Of course, is one rep in one practice during a training camp. There was no first down marker. There was no score on the scoreboard. Still happened. Jared Wiley, in my opinion, is absolutely going to be a factor this season. He's going to be somebody that lets the Chiefs take Travis Kelce off of the field from time to time in order to keep him fresh for the playoffs, and the same way that Nick Bolton, his career was sort of sprung forward because he had to cover for an injury during his early rookie season. Jared Wiley is going to be put on the field for this offense early in his rookie season, not because of injury, but for another reason, because Travis Kelce doesn't want to admit it, but it would be nice to take him off the field a little bit to extend his career because he's getting older. Now, running back, I have one note here from Peter F. Sweeney, and the F isn't for fun. Believing more and more that both Deneric Prince and Carson Steele will be on this initial roster. So if Carson Steele is on the roster, probably you're looking at 4 running backs making the team, right? Because unless you're counting on Carson Steele to replace Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Because I think everyone kind of believes Deneric Prince is going to be on the roster. Isaiah Pacheco's obviously going to be on the roster. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're believing, is on the roster. That would be 4 running backs if you also carry Carson Steele. which means your offense probably you have 25 spots. Probably Andy Reid is going to go to Nagy and Spagnuolo and say to each of them, you've got 25 spots, make it work for the personnel you have. 25 spots, 9 offensive linemen, 2 quarterbacks, that's 11, 6 wide receivers, that's 17, 4 tight ends, that's 21, 4 running backs, 25. Now, 9 offensive linemen keeps you pretty tight. That is 5 starters and 4 backups. So you've got 2 backup tackles, a backup guard, and a backup guard center guy. You have the personnel for it. Mike Caliendo, Hunter Nourzad, Wanye Morris, and Lucas Niang. But it keeps you pretty tight if anything does go wrong. The 6 wide receivers, that becomes interesting, doesn't it? Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy. You're halfway done. So between Justin Watson, Justin Ross, Nico Remigio, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman, between those 6 guys, you're keeping 3 of them. And I feel like I'm missing somebody off the top of my head. But between those 6 guys, you're keeping only 3 of them if you're going with 6 wide receivers. 4 tight ends, I think everyone kind of assumes they're going to take because of Noah Gray and Jared Wiley both being effective weapons. Do you keep a guy for special teams as well, etc.? Maybe you skimp at tight end. You only keep 3. Irv Smith looks like an NFL player to me. Then you get 7 wide receivers or 10 offensive linemen. But if Carson Steele is to make the team, it becomes an interesting flex of positions here for the offense. One offensive line note, Kingsley Suamataia, to me, looks very much more comfortable than he has thus far. He looks less hesitant. He looks more on the offensive, even in pass blocking drills. He is becoming an aggressor going out and meeting the defensive lineman. You are seeing more and more of his athleticism come out to play because he is more and more comfortable with assignments. When you're not sure of the assignment, the first thing to disappear on you is your athleticism because you're too busy worried about what it is that you're supposed to do. And if you're too busy worried about what it is you're supposed to do, you're not just acting. You might be reacting, but reacting is, again, hesitant, right? Not attacking. It is defensive, not offensive. So it is good to see Kingsley Suamataia taking these steps. It is interesting to consider what the possibilities will be if Kingsley Suamataia is a legitimate left tackle in the NFL. If he is, the Chiefs' offense is going to look even better. His aggression is probably going to cost him a couple times, right? And we have seen time and again, Andy Reid does not like to give his offensive linemen help. He likes to keep them on an island because if you give... So you tell Travis Kelce, okay, you got to block a little bit on this passing route. You don't have to stay in and block. You don't have to be the 6th man on the line, but I need you to chip. I need you to chip aggressively. I need you to spend a second on the offensive line. Well, if he does that, you still have the possibility that the pass blocking breaks down somewhere else. So now, say you're giving your left tackle help from Travis Kelce, your right tackle whiffs on a block. Now, Patrick Mahomes has the football without his exit route, without his hot route here, right? So Andy Reid seems to be of the opinion that give Patrick Mahomes all of the options of targets. Don't keep a target back to block. if your offensive line is going to break down, your offensive line is going to break down. Trust Patrick Mahomes at that point to find someone to throw the ball. Andy Reid seems to be of the opinion that having multiple hot routes is a more effective way of tamping down the defense's aggression versus trying to make sure there is someone back to block for Patrick Mahomes. And it's worked out pretty well, right? I mean, we've seen Patrick Mahomes be extremely precise and effective against the blitz. So maybe there's something to that, but if you're counting on a rookie left tackle, maybe it gets kind of spicy, kind of quick. But Kingsley is really taking care of everything so far, so we'll see. It does mean Wanya Morris has kind of disappeared for a couple days now. So we'll see what goes on there. But at defensive back, Charles gives us first play of team, and we've got Chiefs cornerback Jalen Watson returning to the starting unit opposite Joshua Williams, on the B outside McDuffie in the slot. And then this is a note from me, Jalen Watson is going to start. I am very positive. Jalen Watson has been gone. Jalen Watson has been out. So I already did this video one time. And Clip Champs froze, so I have to get rid of that highlight there. Jalen Watson, in my opinion, is a starting level cornerback in the NFL. Jalen Watson is going to be a starter for the Chiefs this season. Jalen Watson, I think, has the potential to make this offseason or next offseason difficult for the Kansas City Chiefs in figuring out whether or not they want to have to bring him back. Yes, the Chiefs seem to be all right letting defensive backs walk. Jalen Watson, I think, has the potential to make you scratch your head about, well, do we really want to have to replace him? He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the explosiveness, he makes big plays, he has a knack for the biggest moments. So, I'm not saying Joshua Williams isn't a good cornerback. I really do like Jalen Watson. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Chiefs choose to prioritize things, right? We questioned L'Jarius Sneed, trading L'Jarius Sneed for what seemed like pennies on the dollar. And we're getting whispers that L'Jarius Sneed has had some problems with his knee this season, this preseason, this training camp already. You hate to, I know it's always sort of a faux pas to talk about injuries, right? But if the Chiefs knew that was going down and his knee might not be stable, you kind of got to get out of the L'Jarius Sneed business, right? So interesting what happened there, but the Chiefs do have a penchant for collecting defensive backs and collecting pretty good ones. So we will see if either of these players, Joshua Williams or Jalen Watson, are brought back. Najee Johnson, for that matter, was in the same draft. Najee Johnson looks like a totally different player this year, by the way. From Pete, we get this. Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo says he's most looking forward to watching the defensive backs in the upcoming preseason game. A lot of players to evaluate with an open cornerback role. Now, if you caught me earlier, that is the operative word. I haven't watched the interview. If this was the word that Spagnuolo used, an open cornerback role, by the powers invested in the English language, that suggests one spot, meaning he has his mind made up about the other spots, meaning he knows pretty much what this roster is going to look like at the cornerback spot with the exception of one player. And when you think about things, we have seen pretty much all of the veterans cycle through with the starters. So if there is one player that is going to, if there are several players competing for one spot for the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to wonder, who is it and why is it just one spot? So Echo Boydo, Nick Jones. So the other guys are listed at defensive back, but I mean, Kamal Hadden was drafted this season. Those guys are the only ones that I don't remember having cycled through with the starters, or at least no mention of it. So, are those the guys that are in contention for a single defensive back spot? Catching me again here. It is going to be interesting, in my opinion. A note at linebacker, Pete says, after having words with several offensive players throughout practice, Drue Tranquill is now on the sideline dancing to Shabuzi. I don't know what Shabuzi is. I assume that is a song. Maybe it's like the Macarena. I have no idea. Drue Tranquill in a choreographed dance. The thought of that tickles me, I will have to admit. But Drue Tranquill, correct me if I'm wrong, Drue Tranquill has sort of become the Travis Kelce of the defense this season. He's getting into fights. He's dancing like a weirdo on the sidelines. He is an outspoken leader. It's interesting to see this evolution from Drue Tranquill. We know how well the Travis Kelce role works for the offense. They constantly look to Kelce as sort of a fire-up type of guy. Is Drue Tranquill being that guy for the defense? And the final note that I have here at defensive line, Derek Nottie returns to practice. Derek Nottie is a very high floor guy. This does make you wonder if the Chiefs were able to figure out the rest of that defensive tackle position during the time that Derek Nottie was sidelined with this injury. You have Matt Dickerson, who seems completely invisible to me this preseason. Alex Gubner, the interesting UDFA. Chris Jones, obviously. Fabian Levette, a UDFA that I fully believe will make the roster. Mike Pennell, a guy who I hope makes the roster and is sort of kept on the shelf until the postseason. Tershawn Wharton, who is back yet again for the Kansas City Chiefs, though he is an undersized defensive tackle, he is someone who contributes for the Chiefs, someone who has been counted on to contribute for the Chiefs time and again. And then, confusingly listed as a defensive end on the official roster, 6'4", 325-pound Neil Farrell, who has seemed to be a little bit of a different player this preseason, growing a little bit and being a force against the run. So Derek Nottie coming back, I hate to say it, I'm not positive he makes the roster. I think that Fabian Levette has shown things this preseason that make you want to have him on the roster as a rookie. I don't know if he will. If he gets on the field in the preseason, I don't know if he sneaks through waivers. Neil Farrell has done the part of the defense that Derek Nottie has been counted on. He has been very stout against the inside run. How often have we heard this preseason that the Chiefs are trying to run on the inside and they can't get it done, even though they have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, two of the better interior offensive linemen in the NFL. You have Mike Pennell, who does that same thing, and then you have Tershawn Wharton, who's sort of a wild card at the defensive tackle spot. I'm not sure Derek Nottie, who is a very high floor player, contributes at the level necessary to not be replaced. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button, because the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.